7 Ages here at the Greenville, North Carolina Archaeology and Artifact Show. What an interesting time this afternoon. I got to tell you, some of the things that we've seen, again, we already mentioned it in that earlier segment, but the bird effigy pipe that Don Ham, legendary collector, brought with him. Guys, this has just been incredible. And one of the big things that's on the table, this has come up in so many conversations we've had today, we're trying to bridge this gap between the collectors and the academics. We've got academics who are here actually cataloging some incredible finds, a lot of collectors who are actually selling things, some discussion with historians like Dr. Ewen, who we spoke with, who are saying, the academics, they don't want to be caught, collecting or doing anything like that. The collectors, they don't want to give their stuff to the academics. And part of what this show does is we're bringing people together, not us specifically, although we're trying to do that, 7 Ages also, but the people who are orchestrating this event, they're saying we want to try and bring people together and bridge that gap between the collecting and the academic community.
Yeah, we did have an opportunity to speak with some of the organizers of the event, and we were extremely happy to see that was their intent, is they feel the same way we do here at 7 Ages about bridging that gap between the academic community and the collector. When you get it right and those two can respect one another and work together, you end up exponentially increasing your knowledge, because as we know and as we see here today, there are far more collectors than there are people working in these academic fields. So these are the people with the majority of these treasures and majority of these artifacts. So when they can learn to depend on one another and trust one another, it's going to reflect in the research, and we're all going to move forward with our knowledge about the past.
Yeah, like Dr. Ewing said earlier, there's far more collectors than there are archaeologists or academics, and really, I think he sounded like he was the kind of guy that appreciated that there was really a need for them to bridge that gap, and it'd be beneficial for everybody instead of just having these two camps, diametrically opposed to each other, really unnecessarily. Collectors, one thing, and we've heard this all weekend actually, is they're afraid that if the academics find out that they have some kind of artifacts on their property, or there's when they till their fields, there's points come up. If they find out, they're going to come and take it or confiscate their land or whatever, which is not true at all. I mean, that's not true. But it's just some myth or some wives' tale that just does not seem to die.
People who actually think that through processes like eminent domain, if there's something of significance found on their property, that the government may come and try and take their land. Now, we did hear one very interesting story that was shared with us by an individual here at the event. And this, again, was not some sort of a make-believe story or wives' tale. It was a group of academics that had actually forcefully entered a person's house and did take some artifacts, but this was decades ago, and he was making the point that this was a horrible example of how we bridge the gap between these communities. We want to foster a good relationship between collectors and people who are academics who are trying to study, because again, you come to an event like this, you never know when you're going to walk into a room like this with so much representation from different periods in time and all these artifacts. You never know when you're going to find the next big discovery that's going to rewrite everything that you thought you knew about some aspect or area or period in history.
Yeah, and literally, as we're sitting here right now, we have someone from East Carolina University to my right. He's here documenting various points that are being brought to him for his research by amateur collectors. So literally, as we're sitting here recording this podcast right this very moment, knowledge is being expanded and being shared between those two sides of the camp. So it's a fantastic thing to see. I hope as we move forward that people recognize that is truly at the center of the goals for 7 Ages Research Associates. And we truly are, I think we've made some really good connections here today, and people are understanding that we can represent both sides of the house, the academic side as well as the amateur collector. But again, we're seeing people here today who have been collecting 40, 50, sometimes 60 years.
It's incredible.
And so they have a vast amount of knowledge, and you think, if you take someone who's developing a report, someone who's writing a paper, someone with that type of experience who can literally guide you to a spot and tell you, this is where, the last 40 years of my life has been spent collecting, and here are the artifacts. You got to think about how much knowledge can be gained for everyone's benefit.
Certainly.
When those two sides work together, and that's what we want to do at 7 Ages.
That can't be discounted. As a matter of fact, it's funny you say that. I was on the other side of the room early this morning, and there was overheard an elderly gentleman say he had been collecting for 75 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's amazing.
I mean, most people are lucky to live 75 years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really been a way of life for these people. But the importance of getting the aspects of the archaeological community that seem to kind of exist in their own little separate universes, getting these different areas together, getting the representative communities to share information. This is how archaeology moves forward. This is how discoveries are made, and this is how we preserve the past. And really, that's as much a part of what we as Seven Ages are trying to do as I think anybody in this room. It's so great to see a group come together with all of this in mind.
Yeah, it's always better when we share information and openly and with more transparency. That's the only real way to move forward.
Yep, I agree. So at this point, we're about halfway through the show. We've got a couple hours left. We're hoping to get a few more interviews for everyone to hear and maybe go find a few more of these archaeological treasures before we wrap it up today.
That and some delicious cuisine from here in Greenville, North Carolina. Seven Ages on site, on duty.